After Emma Thompson learned her true identity was Olivia Bennet and that the couple she'd called her parents for over 15 years were actually her abductors, her entire reality crumbled. Grasping that her life had been built on deception, she grappled with accepting this jarring truth. Yet, through it all, her biological parents stood by her, offering unwavering support, and slowly, Olivia forged a connection with them, reclaiming the years stolen from her. But she'd soon discover that her former life and the people who stole her weren't ready to release their grip, and her path to a normal existence was still fraught with obstacles. Before we jump into the next chapter of this jaw-dropping tale, let us know where you're tuning in from today, and if you're hooked, be sure to hit that subscribe button. As dusk stretched across London's lively streets, Emma, now embracing her true name, Olivia Bennet, stepped out of the police station's interview room. The past few hours had been a chaotic blur of giving statements and sifting through evidence, each second dragging on as she relived the stunning truth of her identity. Fatigue pressed down on her as she headed toward the waiting area. Her eyes, swollen from hours of crying and tension, swept the room until they settled on two faces that felt both familiar and foreign, her real parents, Karen and Michael Bennet. A knot tightened in Olivia's throat as she neared them, the space between them buzzing with a mix of hope and unease. "Could we sit down and talk?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible. "All of us together?" Karen and Michael shared a quick look before nodding in sync. "Absolutely, honey," Karen said, her tone soothing and warm, though her stiff posture betrayed her anxiety. They were ushered into a small, private room at the station. The harsh fluorescent lights threw sharp shadows across their faces, highlighting the worry lines and years of grief carved into Karen and Michael's expressions. As the door clicked shut, cocooning them in a private moment, the heavy burden of 15 lost years seemed to settle over the room. For a beat, they stood in uneasy silence, each uncertain how to cross the vast divide of time apart. Karen broke the quiet first. "Olivia," she started, her voice trembling with feeling, "we've ached for you every single day since you were taken from us." Michael nodded, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Even when the authorities said it was a lost cause, we held on to hope. We knew you were out there somewhere." Olivia listened, her chest tightening at the raw pain in their voices. She could see the toll their relentless search had taken, the early wrinkles framing their eyes, the silver threads in their hair. "We were consumed by guilt and sorrow," Karen went on, her hands tightly clasped. "Not knowing if you were safe or happy, it tore us apart." Michael gently laid his hand over Karen's. "Hearing now that you had a decent life, that you were looked after, it brings us a little comfort at least." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. The devotion of these strangers, her true parents, felt almost too much to bear. "I want to know you both," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to learn about you, to grow closer and build something real." A flicker of hope sparked in Karen and Michael's eyes. Olivia pressed on, her confidence building. "I'm so thankful you never stopped looking for me. That missing person poster, it's what led me to this truth." Taking a steadying breath, Olivia made a life-altering choice. "I'm done living a lie," she said firmly. "I want to reclaim my real name, Olivia Bennet. Call me Olivia from now on. I'm your daughter, not the child of those kidnappers." Karen and Michael shared a look of unbridled joy, tears streaming down their faces. Olivia felt a burden lift as she continued. "I'd like to take you up on your offer to stay with you in London. I don't want to return to the US where my past will keep haunting me. I want to start fresh here, find work, and live with you." The Bennets' faces glowed with delight. "Of course, Olivia," Michael said, his voice choked with feeling. "Our home has always been yours." Overwhelmed by emotion, they rose and enveloped Olivia in a warm group hug. The embrace felt like home, as if she'd finally uncovered a missing piece of her soul. As they pulled back, wiping tears and exchanging shaky smiles, Olivia felt a new sense of direction. "I need to get proper UK passports," she said, her voice steadier now, "and other paperwork. I want to make this official." They left the room as a united front, ready to face the world together. Olivia approached an officer explaining her need for new, legitimate documents. The officer nodded kindly, assuring her that since she was born in England, it could be arranged. It'll take a few days, he said, but we'll mail everything to your address once it's ready. Olivia turned to Karen, suddenly aware she didn't know where home was. Mom, she said, the word feeling both strange and right, what's our address for the passport and documents? As Karen gave the details to the officer, Olivia felt a wave of surreal calm. Just this morning, she'd been Emma Thompson, an American teen, on a trip. Now she was Olivia Bennet, embracing her British roots and preparing for a new life in London. The magnitude of the shift was dizzying, but as she glanced at Karen and Michael's loving faces, her true parents, she felt a surge of courage. Whatever lay ahead, she wouldn't face it alone. She'd found her real family, and together they'd carve out a future free from the lies of her past. As Olivia, Karen, and Michael prepared to leave the station, a sense of possibility lingered in the air. The world outside felt both known and alien, as if Olivia was seeing it with fresh eyes. Just as they were about to step into the London evening, an officer approached, his expression carefully neutral. "Miss Bennet," he said, using her reclaimed name, "the Thompsons want to speak with you again before they're processed. They'll likely be detained until their court date, so if you want a final chance to talk, now's the time." Olivia's heart stuttered. The mention of the Thompsons, the people she'd called Mom and Dad for 18 years, stirred a tangled mess of emotions. Anger, affection, betrayal, and a lingering sense of duty clashed within her. She paused, her eyes darting between Karen and Michael, who watched her with worry and thinly veiled unease. After a moment of inner turmoil, Olivia nodded. "I'll talk to them," she said, her voice calmer than she felt, but only with Susan. "I don't feel safe facing John." Her hand instinctively touched her split lip, the bruise a painful reminder of John's earlier outburst. The memory of his rage, so unlike the doting father she'd known, sent a chill through her. Turning to Karen and Michael, Olivia managed a faint smile. "I need to do this," she said, noting the concern in their eyes. "I think I need some kind of closure." They nodded, supportive but clearly pained, the moment a stark reminder of the years they'd lost and the complex bond Olivia still shared with her kidnappers. The officer guided Olivia to an interview room, explaining she'd have privacy but could call for help with a button if needed. Soon, another officer brought in Susan Thompson, her hands cuffed. As the door closed, leaving them alone, Olivia faced the woman she'd called her mother for 15 years. Susan looked diminished, her usually polished appearance frayed, her eyes puffy from tears. "Emma," Susan started, her voice breaking. Olivia corrected, her tone gentle but firm. "My name is Olivia Bennet now." Susan nodded, accepting the change, though Olivia caught the flicker of hurt in her eyes. "Olivia," she repeated as if trying the name on. "I'm so sorry for everything. I want to tell you the full truth. No more lies." Olivia settled back in her chair, steeling herself for what was coming. Despite it all, a part of her still craved Susan's warmth, the familiar comfort of her past life, but she braced herself, recalling the depth of Susan and John's deception. Susan took a shaky breath, her hands restless in her lap. "When John and I were expecting our first child in the U.S., she began softly, we'd been trying for 4 years. When it finally happened, we were over the moon." Olivia listened closely as Susan recounted the heartbreaking loss of their biological child. The way it shattered their lives, especially John's mental stability. She spoke of their failed adoption attempts, blocked by John's PTSD and temper. "That's when we took a trip to London," Susan went on, her voice heavy with regret. "We needed space to grieve. That's when we first noticed you in the park." A shiver ran through Olivia as Susan described how John fixated on her, convincing himself and Susan that Olivia's real parents were neglectful. "John kept going back to the park," Susan said, her gaze distant. "He saw you there often, always alone, while your parents were glued to their laptops or phones. They never seemed to engage with you, and you were left playing by yourself while they were lost in their work." Susan's voice quivered as she pressed on. John persuaded himself, and eventually me, that you'd thrive with us, she said, her tone heavy with regret. He claimed your parents were too absorbed in their own lives to give you the care and affection you needed. He convinced me. Susan confessed, her shame palpable. That's when we made the choice to take you and escape to the U.S. with forged papers. As Susan's tale unraveled, Olivia wrestled with a tangle of feelings. A part of her sympathized with the anguish Susan and John had faced, the desperation that pushed them to such drastic measures. Yet another part bristled at the self-centeredness of their decision, the lives they'd shattered in their quest for fulfillment. John isn't always the man you knew, Susan cautioned, her voice growing urgent. When we fought, he could turn violent. It happened less after we had you. You somehow filled a void in him. But as you saw earlier, Olivia nodded, her fingers brushing her bruised lip instinctively. I knew he'd been in the military, but I never realized he was battling something deeper. Maybe we could find help for him, she said, though her words lacked certainty. Susan shook her head firmly. I tried for years, Olivia, but he's too broken now. You need to hear this. Keep your distance from him. He's capable of far darker things. The warning sent a shiver through Olivia. She listened as Susan shared her fears about their case, the chance of probation instead of prison. If John reaches out to you again, steer clear, Susan begged. He's hurting, and there's no telling what he might do to lash out. As their conversation neared its end, Olivia grappled with a storm of emotions. I still care for him, she admitted softly. He was my dad all those years. I didn't know about his struggles. I'm not sure what to feel anymore. Susan reached out, her hand hovering just shy of Olivia's. I get it, she said gently. But please be cautious. There are things you may not fully grasp, but trust me on this. As Olivia prepared to leave, she glanced back at Susan. We'll keep in touch by phone, she promised. I need time to sort through my feelings and figure out my next steps, but thank you for finally being honest. With that, Olivia exited the room, her mind spinning with new revelations and warnings. Watching an officer escort Susan away in handcuffs felt like witnessing the final page of her old life turn. The road ahead loomed, daunting and uncertain, but brimming with the promise of truth and authentic connection. The crisp evening breeze brushed Olivia's face as she stepped out of the police station alongside Karen and Michael. London's familiar streets now carried a deeper meaning. This was her birthplace, where her life was meant to unfold. The weight of that truth settled heavily on her. As they approached the Bennett's car, Karen and Michael exchanged worried looks, sensing the unease radiating from Olivia. Was the talk with Susan okay? Karen asked carefully, unsure how to refer to the woman who'd raised her daughter. Olivia let out a long breath, running her fingers through her hair. I'm just caught in a whirlwind of feelings right now, she confessed, her voice hushed. When they reached the car, a sleek silver sedan hinting at a comfortable life, Michael unlocked the doors. We get it, honey, he said softly. This is a lot to take in. We're here whenever you're ready to talk. Olivia nodded, appreciative as she slipped into the back seat. As Karen settled in the front and Michael took the driver's seat, a heavy silence enveloped the car, thick with unvoiced questions and quiet fears. As they pulled away from the curb, Karen turned to face Olivia. We're overjoyed you're coming home with us, she said, her voice brimming with emotion. We've longed for this day for so long. We hope we can make up for all the years we missed. Olivia's throat tightened at the sincerity in Karen's words. I hope so too, she replied, managing a faint smile. To ease the tension, Michael chimed in from the driver's seat. "So, Olivia," he said, keeping his tone upbeat, "tell us about you. What do you love? What music gets you going?" Relieved for the lighter topic, Olivia opened up about her life. She shared her passion for photography, her favorite bands, and her dream of studying journalism. As she spoke, she noticed Karen and Michael hanging on her every word, as if trying to soak up 15 years of missed moments in one drive. In return, they offered glimpses of their lives. Karen taught at a primary school while Michael designed buildings as an architect. They lived in a snug house in a peaceful London suburb, complete with a little garden Karen cherished. Cruising through London's streets, Olivia saw the city anew. Landmarks she'd marveled at as a tourist days ago now felt like part of her heritage, her birthright. The realization was thrilling yet overwhelming. "We kept your room ready," Karen said abruptly, breaking a brief silence. "All these years, we held onto it, always hoping you'd come back to us." Tears stung Olivia's eyes at the thought. The depth of their unwavering love, sustained through years of pain and uncertainty, was almost too much to take in. As they turned onto a tranquil residential street, Michael slowed the car. "We're nearly home," he said, excitement creeping into his voice. Olivia gazed out at the tidy houses with their small gardens. It was worlds away from the busy American suburb of her childhood, but its quiet charm felt comforting. When they pulled into a driveway, Olivia's pulse quickened. This was it, her true home, where her life was meant to be. Stepping out of the car, she took a deep breath, bracing for what lay ahead. Karen and Michael stood by her side as they walked to the front door. "Welcome home, Olivia," Karen said softly as Michael turned the key. The door opened to a cozy, lived-in space filled with photos and keepsakes from a life Olivia had never known. Crossing the threshold, she felt like she was stepping into a fresh chapter, one woven with truth, love, and the hope of a future unburdened by deceit. Soft morning light slipped through the curtains of Olivia's new room, gently stirring her awake. For a moment, confusion clouded her mind as she took in the unfamiliar space. It had been 21 days since that life-changing day at the police station, 21 days of adapting to her new reality as Olivia Bennet. The initial shock had softened into a tentative new routine, marked by cautious steps toward bonding with Karen and Michael, her true parents. Olivia sat up, raking a hand through her messy hair as she scanned the room, a blend of old and new, with furniture chosen by Karen and Michael years ago now mixed with her own possessions. The house was still as Olivia padded downstairs, the wooden steps creaking underfoot. Entering the kitchen, she found Karen and Michael already up, a spread of breakfast foods on the table. "Morning, honey," Karen said warmly, her face brightening at Olivia's arrival. "Sleep okay?" Olivia nodded, offering a small smile as she sat down. "Yeah, thanks," she said, grabbing a piece of toast. The ordinary scene, so routine yet so new, still felt dreamlike at times. As they ate, Olivia caught Karen glancing at a stack of envelopes on the counter. Following her gaze, Olivia felt a familiar twist in her gut. "More letters from him?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Karen nodded, her face a mix of worry and empathy. "Yes, they came this morning," she confirmed. Olivia sighed, pushing her half-eaten breakfast aside. Since settling into her new home, she'd received countless letters from John, sent from the prison where he awaited trial. She'd read the first few, finding a jarring mix of bitter accusations and pleading apologies. After that, she'd stopped, the emotional weight too heavy to carry. "I can't keep facing this," Olivia said, her voice wavering. "Every envelope drags me back to the lies, to everything." Michael reached over, gently squeezing her hand. "You don't have to read them if you're not ready," he reassured her. "We can return them or tuck them away until you feel up to it." Olivia nodded, a wave of warmth washing over her for these people who had so swiftly become her rock. Their steady patience and compassion had been a constant even as she wrestled with the tangled emotions of her former life. As breakfast wrapped up, Olivia glanced at the clock and jolted with realization they needed to head out soon. Today, she was flying back to the U.S. to gather the last of her things from her old house. The idea stirred a blend of excitement and unease in her chest. "We'd better get moving," she said, rising from the table. "We can't miss our flight." Karen nodded, swiftly clearing the plates. "I'll be right there with you," she said, reminding Olivia of her support. Heading upstairs to grab her suitcase, Olivia paused at the hallway mirror. The reflection staring back was both familiar and altered. The last 3 weeks had reshaped her in ways she was only starting to grasp. She packed quickly, tossing essentials into a small suitcase. This was a one-day trip, a brief dash to retrieve the items too precious to abandon. Zipping up the bag, her fingers grazed her new UK passport, stamped with her true name, Olivia Bennett. A quiet thrill surged through her at the sight, a concrete emblem of her rediscovered self. Downstairs, Karen waited by the door, her own small bag ready. Michael stood nearby. "Taxi's almost here," he said, glancing at his watch. Right on cue, a car horn sounded through the open window. Olivia took a steadying breath, bracing for the journey ahead. Returning to her old life felt like sealing a chapter, a final leap toward embracing her new truth. With a last wave to Michael, Olivia and Karen slid into the taxi. As it pulled away, Olivia felt like she was truly stepping into the next phase of her life, one woven with honesty, love, and the hope of a future unmarred by her past's shadows. The transatlantic flight dragged on, each hour marked by the low drone of engines and the occasional chime of the seatbelt sign. Olivia spent most of it lost in her thoughts, her mind churning with memories and worries about what awaited. Beside her, Karen napped restlessly, her presence a steady comfort amid the storm of uncertainty. When the plane landed in Ohio, Olivia felt a pang of recognition. This had been her home for as long as she could recall, yet now it seemed foreign, like a stage set from a life she'd outgrown. They navigated customs and baggage claim in a fog, the jet lag and emotional heft of the trip leaving them drained. Outside the airport, they hopped into an Uber. Settling into the back seat, Olivia gave the driver her old address. The words felt odd, like reciting lines from a forgotten script. Driving through the familiar streets of her childhood felt otherworldly. Olivia pointed out landmarks to Karen, her old school, the park where she'd played, the ice cream shop that hosted countless birthday celebrations. Each memory shared carried a strange mix of fondness and distance, as if she were recounting someone else's story. As they turned onto her old street, Olivia's pulse quickened. Seeing her childhood home, a tidy 2-story with a neat garden, unleashed a flood of emotions she wasn't ready for. Memories of family dinners, holiday gatherings, and quiet nights reading in her room surged back. The Uber stopped, and for a moment, Olivia couldn't move. Karen reached over, gently squeezing her hand. "No rush, honey," she said softly. "We've got time." Bolstered by Karen's support, Olivia took a deep breath and stepped out. Then something caught her eye, a van parked down the street. It wasn't familiar, and its presence sent a faint chill through her. "Mom," she said, the words still feeling fresh when aimed at Karen, "do you see that van? Could it be police? Maybe they're still looking into things." Karen frowned, eyeing the vehicle. "I'm not sure, sweetheart, but you might be right. Could be an undercover agent." Olivia shook her head, trying to shrug off her nerves. "We're probably just being jumpy," she said, forcing a smile. "Let's head inside." Approaching the front door, Olivia's hand shook as she turned the key. The lock clicked familiarly and the door swung open, revealing her childhood home. Everything was as she remembered, yet it felt off. The scents, the furniture, the family photos on the walls, it all seemed like a staged replica of the life she'd once thought was hers. Olivia guided Karen through the house, showing her the living room, kitchen, and finally her bedroom. Standing in her room's doorway, Olivia's throat tightened. Once her haven, this space now felt like a display of a life that no longer fit. "It was a lovely home," Karen said softly, taking in every detail. "I'm relieved to know they cared for you well." Olivia nodded, words stuck behind the lump in her throat. She moved to her closet, starting to sort through her things. Each item sparked memories, some joyful, others now shadowed by the truth of the lies that had defined her life. As Olivia worked, carefully choosing what to keep, Karen watched from the doorway. Her face held a mix of sorrow for the lost years, gratitude that her daughter had been loved, and a fierce protectiveness for the young woman before her. After a bit, Karen spoke. "I'll wait in the car, honey," she said gently. "I don't want to crowd you in this moment. Take as long as you need to say goodbye." Olivia looked up, touched by the gesture. "You sure?" she asked, moved by Karen's thoughtfulness. Karen nodded, a wistful smile on her lips. "This is your past, Olivia. You need to face it your way. I'll be right outside if you need me." As Karen left, Olivia felt both relieved and uneasy. She appreciated the space to process, but being alone in this house of memories was intimidating. Resuming her task, Olivia sifted through her belongings, picking only the items with true meaning: photo albums, beloved books, a childhood stuffed animal. The rest, she decided, could stay. This was about moving forward, not dragging her past into her new life. As she worked, a nagging sense of being watched clung to her. The house creaked and shifted, each noise making her flinch. She tried to chalk it up to stress, but the feeling wouldn't fade. Finally, with her suitcase packed and her room looking oddly empty, Olivia took one last look around. This room, this house, had been her universe for 15 years. Now it felt like a set ready to be dismantled. With a steadying breath, Olivia turned to leave, ready to close this chapter and embrace her future in London. But as she reached for the doorknob, a sound from downstairs stopped her cold, the distinct creak of a floorboard under someone's weight. Olivia's heart raced. Karen was in the car, and she was supposed to be alone. Fear gripped her as she realized her instincts about the van might have been spot on. Someone was in the house, and her past might not be ready to let go. Her mind raced. Could it be a cop doing a final check? A curious neighbor? But a deeper dread suggested something else. Steeling herself, Olivia called out, her voice shaky. "Hello? Who's there?" "Mom, is that you?" Silence answered at first. Then slow, deliberate footsteps began climbing the stairs. Olivia's instincts screamed, and she scanned her room for a weapon. Her eyes landed on a hefty trophy from a high school photography contest. She grabbed it, clutching it tightly as she faced the door. The footsteps grew closer, and a figure appeared in the doorway. Olivia's grip on the trophy faltered as shock hit her. It wasn't a stranger or a cop, but a face from family gatherings and holiday snapshots, her Uncle Tom, John's brother. "Uncle Tom." Olivia gasped, fear and confusion lacing her voice. "What are you doing here?" Tom's face, eerily similar to John's, was a mask of strained calm. "Emma," he said. His tone measured, "or I guess Olivia now. We need to have a conversation." Olivia stepped back, still wary despite the familiar face. "How do you get in?" she demanded, her voice steadier. Tom held up a key, a faint, sad smile on his lips. "Your dad, John, he always left a spare with me for emergencies." The mention of John sent a shock through Olivia. "What do you want?" she asked cautiously. Tom's expression softened just a touch, but Olivia caught an undercurrent of tension she couldn't shake. "I'd like you to come to my place," he said, his tone almost too relaxed. "We need to talk this through. I don't believe John's the villain you've been told he is." A cold shiver ran through Olivia at his words. "I've made my choice," she said, her voice resolute. "I'm staying in the UK. If I ever want to talk to John, I'll reach out on my own terms." A flicker of something, anger, maybe irritation, flashed across Tom's face before he masked it with a look of concern. "This isn't optional, Olivia," he said, his tone sharpening. "You need to come with me now. We're going to figure this out." Olivia's pulse quickened as the weight of his words sank in. This wasn't a friendly check-in, it was a push to control her, maybe even drag her back to John. "You're calling me ungrateful?" Tom pressed, his voice rising. "John gave you everything for years. How can you just abandon him now?" Anger surged in Olivia at his accusation. "He stole me," she snapped, her voice shaking with emotion. "He ripped me away from my real parents, lied to me my whole life, and turned violent when I learned the truth. How do you say I owe him anything?" Before Tom could reply, a sharp voice broke the tension. "What's happening here?" Olivia turned to see Karen, her face a mix of worry and fierce determination. Relief washed over Olivia at her mother's arrival. Tom's demeanor shifted instantly, surprise clear on his face at the interruption. He tried to regain his composure, but Olivia saw the calculating glint in his eyes as he sized up the situation. "Let's go, Olivia," Karen said firmly, her gaze locked on Tom. Without a second thought, Olivia hurried to Karen's side, feeling a wave of safety in her mother's presence. They backed into the bedroom, swiftly locking the door behind them. "Who was that?" Karen whispered urgently as Olivia grabbed her suitcase. "John's brother," Olivia replied softly. "He wants me to go with him to talk about John." Karen's expression turned steely. "We're calling the police," she said, pulling out her phone. As Karen dialed 911, Tom's voice came through the door, swinging between pleading and menacing. "Olivia, please," he called. "Your dad, John, only wants what's best for you. Open the door or I'll have to come in by force." Olivia's hands trembled as she gripped her suitcase, fear and adrenaline pulsing through her. She listened as Karen quickly relayed the situation to the dispatcher, giving the address and describing the threat. Just as Karen hung up, the faint wail of police sirens reached them. "The police are coming," Olivia shouted, her voice steadier than she felt. "You need to leave now." A tense pause followed, then Tom's footsteps echoed, retreating down the stairs. From the bedroom window, they watched him rush to his car and speed off just as a police car turned onto the street. As the sirens grew louder, Olivia felt the adrenaline ebb, leaving her shaky and drained. Karen pulled her into a tight hug, and Olivia held on, grateful for her mother's strength and protection. "It's okay now," Karen whispered, smoothing Olivia's hair. "You're safe. We're going home." A knock came from downstairs. The police had arrived. As they prepared to head down and explain, Olivia realized this terrifying moment had only solidified her resolve. She was more certain than ever that moving to London was the right path. Each step forward pulled her further from her past's lies and closer to a future rooted in truth and real love. In the living room, a police officer stood, his presence lending a formal weight to the moment. Olivia and Karen sat on the couch, still rattled from Tom's intrusion. The officer's notebook was open, his pen ready to take their statement. "So, you're saying it was an intruder who entered without permission?" the officer asked, his tone calm but professional. Olivia opened her mouth, ready to spill everything about John, Tom, the years of deceit, but something stopped her. She glanced at Karen, seeing the worry in her mother's eyes, and made a snap decision. "It was just some random guy, maybe homeless," Olivia said, her voice steadier than she expected. "He was lurking around, but he took off when he heard the sirens." She sensed Karen's confusion beside her, but her mother stayed silent. The officer glanced between them, his brow creasing slightly. "Homeless," he echoed, his pen pausing. "You sounded pretty shaken on the call." Olivia nodded, forcing a smile she hoped looked believable. "Yeah, I'm sure. We've been on edge with everything going on, but he's gone and we're okay now." The officer studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Glad it worked out safely," he said, closing his notebook. "Call us if anything else comes up. We're here." As the officer left, Olivia felt Karen's questioning gaze. Once the door shut, Karen turned to her. "Olivia," she said, her voice soft but firm, "why didn't you tell him it was your uncle?" Olivia sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I couldn't say it was Tom," she admitted quietly. "It had probably hurt John's case, and I'm still not sure what to think about him. I just want to go home. I'm done with police statements for now." Karen's face softened, understanding flickering in her eyes. She reached for Olivia's hand. "I get it," she said gently, "and I respect your choice. But are you sure this feels right?" Olivia nodded, gratitude welling up for her mother's support. "I'm sure," she said. "I think John's got some real issues. It's not normal, sending his brother to track me down, trying to pull me back. But I can't bring myself to pile more trouble on him yet. I need time to sort it all out." Karen drew Olivia into a warm hug, and Olivia leaned into it, comforted by the embrace. "If that's what feels right to you," Karen murmured, "then that's what we'll do. I'm just so thankful you're safe." As they pulled apart, exhaustion hit Olivia hard. The day's events had drained her, body and soul. "Can we leave now?" she asked, her voice small. "I'm ready to let this part of my life go." Karen nodded, gathering their things. "Of course, honey. Let's head home." Pausing at the doorstep, Olivia took one final look at the house that had been her home for 18 years. It was strange how fast it had shifted from a safe haven to a symbol of betrayal. She took a deep breath, steadying herself for the road ahead. In the Uber, as her old life faded in the rearview, Olivia felt a swirl of emotions: relief at escaping Tom, gratitude for Karen's steadfast support, and a renewed commitment to her new life in London. As her childhood streets slipped away, Olivia knew this trip had cemented something in her. She was ready to fully embrace her identity as Olivia Bennet, not just in name but in heart. Emma Thompson's life was behind her, and though challenges loomed, she felt stronger, ready to face them. The journey back to London blurred through airport checks, long flights, and quick layovers. Olivia spent much of it lost in thought, processing the whirlwind trip to Ohio. Karen stayed a quiet, steady presence, offering silent comfort or light conversation when the quiet grew heavy. When their plane landed at Heathrow, Olivia felt a mix of relief and unease. London's skyline, glimpsed through the plane's window, seemed to beckon her home, but the upcoming court hearings for Susan and John Thompson loomed large in her mind. They moved through customs and baggage claim, the routine now familiar after recent travels. Emerging into the arrivals area, Olivia was surprised to see Michael waiting, his warm smile tinged with visible concern. "Welcome back," he said, wrapping Olivia and Karen in a big hug. "How'd the trip go?" Olivia and Karen shared a look, silently agreeing to hold off on the full story. "It was a lot," Karen said carefully, "but we're happy to be home." As they headed to the car, Michael updated them on recent developments. "The court hearing's been scheduled," he said quietly. "It's actually in a few hours. Olivia, if you're not up for it, we can try to push it back." Olivia shook her head, her jaw set with resolve. "No, I'm ready," she said firmly. "I want to get this over with." The drive home was hushed, each lost in thoughts about the looming hearing. Pulling into the driveway, Olivia felt exhaustion crash over her. The whirlwind of the past few days, combined with jet lag, was taking its toll. "Why don't you rest a bit before we head to court?" Karen suggested, noticing Olivia's weariness. "We've got some time." Olivia nodded, grateful, and trudged up to her room. Lying on her bed, her body begged for sleep, but her mind raced. What would unfold at the hearing? How would seeing John and Susan again feel? What would she say when called to testify? Just as she started to drift into a restless nap, her phone buzzed with a call. Her heart lurched when she saw the caller ID. Susan, calling from prison. Olivia hesitated, her finger hovering over the answer button. Part of her wanted to let it ring, to keep the distance she'd been building. But the part that still cherished Susan's years of care pushed her to pick up. "Hello," Olivia said, her voice barely a whisper. "Olivia." Susan's voice came through, weary and strained. "I'm so glad you answered. They're moving me to the courthouse soon for the hearing." Olivia stayed quiet, unsure how to respond. Susan rushed on, her words tumbling out. "I just want you to follow your heart in court. Say what feels right, whatever that is. I'll accept it. I'm so sorry for everything, and I'll respect your choice, even if you speak against me." Tears stung Olivia's eyes. "Thank you," she managed, her voice thick. "That means a lot." A heavy silence hung between them, laden with unspoken feelings. Then Susan spoke softly. "Good luck, Olivia. I love you, no matter what." Before Olivia could reply, the call ended. She sat frozen, phone still at her ear, a swirl of emotions crashing over her. Despite it all, she still cared for Susan, tied to the love she'd known for years. Setting the phone down, Olivia felt clarity settle in. She knew what she'd do in court. It wouldn't be simple and not everyone might agree, but it felt right. With fresh determination, Olivia got up to prepare for the hearing. Whatever happened in that courtroom, she was ready to face it, to voice her truth, and to take another step toward reclaiming her life. The courthouse stood tall and imposing, its grand exterior underscoring the weight of what lay ahead. Olivia stood between Karen and Michael, drawing strength from their presence as they climbed the steps. The gravity of the moment made each step feel monumental. Inside, the hallway buzzed with tension. Olivia's eyes scanned the crowd, half expecting to spot John or Susan, but they were likely already in the courtroom or a holding area. Their lawyer, a warm-eyed woman named Ellen, met them outside. "You ready, Olivia?" she asked softly, searching for any sign of doubt. Olivia nodded, straightening her shoulders. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steadier than her nerves. Stepping into the courtroom felt like entering another realm. The polished wood, hushed voices, and solemn air seemed more like a film set than her reality. They took their seats and Olivia studied the room. Officers, court staff, and a few unfamiliar faces. Maybe reporters or curious onlookers drawn by the case's unusual nature. The judge entered, silencing the room. He was older, with a stern face but kind eyes that oddly reassured Olivia. "Given the kidnapping occurred long ago," he began, his voice clear, "the sentence will be lighter than it might otherwise be. However, the use of fake documents and other crimes involved demand we take this seriously." Olivia listened closely as the judge detailed the case's complexities, noting Susan's lesser role in the document fraud would be considered, though her awareness of the crime and failure to report it remained serious. Then came the moment Olivia had both dreaded and awaited. The judge turned to her. "Miss Bennett," he said, his tone softer, "your testimony about how the Thompsons treated you will heavily influence their sentences. Would you like to speak?" Olivia took a deep breath, feeling every eye on her. She stood, legs shaky but her resolve firming. "Your Honor," she started, her voice wavering before gaining strength. "I always felt loved. John and Susan Thompson cared for me like their own, and that love is something I'll always carry." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "But what they did was unforgivable. They stole me from my real parents and took away the life I was meant to have." Turning slightly, Olivia's gaze found Susan at the defendant's table. "I believe Susan shouldn't face as harsh a punishment. She was involved, but I think she was following John's lead. The kidnapping wasn't her idea, and in the end, she protected me from his anger." The judge nodded, jotting notes as Olivia spoke. Then he asked about John's treatment of her over the years. Olivia's throat tightened. "I know John loved me," she said carefully, "but I think I was a way to fill a void for him. I still care for him, and part of me wants to defend him, but he's not well. He needs help." She described the violent incident at the Airbnb, how John had locked her in the bathroom, and the unsettling encounter with his brother in Ohio, which revealed John's deeper instability. Finishing, Olivia felt drained yet unburdened. She'd laid bare her complex feelings about the people who raised her. The judge thanked her, and she sat, Karen squeezing her hand in quiet support, filling Olivia with gratitude for her true parents. A short recess followed as the judge consulted with colleagues. The courtroom hummed with tension as everyone awaited the verdict. Olivia held her breath, heart pounding. The judge returned, and silence fell. Given Miss Bennet's testimony, which carries significant weight, he said gravely, I've reached the following decision. Olivia leaned forward, every muscle taut, waiting to hear the fate of those who'd raised her for 15 years. Susan Thompson, the judge continued, you are sentenced to 6 years of probation for your role in the kidnapping and knowledge of the fake documents. Considering your clean record and Miss Bennet's testimony, this is fitting. Olivia saw Susan's shoulders slump with relief, tears streaming down her face. Their eyes met, and Susan gave a small, thankful nod. John Thompson, the judge said, his tone firmer, as the primary orchestrator of the kidnapping and document fraud, and given Miss Bennet's account of your recent actions, you are sentenced to 8 years in prison. You'll receive psychological treatment, with the possibility of parole after 4 years if you show substantial mental health progress. Olivia watched John closely. To her surprise, a flicker of relief crossed his face, as if he recognized his need for help and welcomed it. As the gavel fell, closing the hearing, Olivia felt a weight lift. It wasn't perfect. Nothing could erase the stolen years, but it felt like justice, as fair as it could be. Leaving the courtroom, Olivia was swept by relief, sorrow, hope, and a strange sense of closure. She knew healing and rebuilding lay ahead, but for the first time since uncovering her true identity, she felt ready to embrace the future. The courthouse steps felt lighter as Olivia descended, flanked by Karen and Michael. The heaviness from their arrival had eased, replaced by a mix of relief and curiosity about what lay ahead. We're so proud of you, Olivia, Karen said softly, her arm around her daughter's shoulders. What you did in there took incredible strength. Michael nodded, his eyes bright with pride and concern. You made the right call, he said. It wasn't easy, but you spoke your truth. Olivia offered a small smile, warmed by their support. At the bottom of the steps, she paused, turning to them. Can I ask you something? She said, her tone hesitant. Of course, honey, Karen said, her brow creasing with concern. What's on your mind? Olivia took a breath, bracing for their response. Would it be okay if I kept in touch with Susan? She'll be on probation, and I think I need to stay connected to her. And maybe down the line, I might want to reach out to John once he's made progress. Part of me still loves them. She watched nervously as Karen and Michael exchanged a glance, their faces unreadable. For a moment, she worried she'd overstepped, that wanting to stay linked to the Thompsons might seem like a betrayal. But Karen's expression softened and she took Olivia's hand. That's absolutely okay, Karen said gently. We understand, Olivia. They were your family for 15 years. It's only natural you still care. Michael nodded. We'll back you in whatever you choose, he said. We're just so grateful you're with us now. We want you to find peace with your past. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, overwhelmed by their compassion. She hugged them both tightly. Thank you, she whispered, voice thick. Thank you for getting it. As they parted, brushing away tears with shaky smiles, Michael cleared his throat. How about dinner out tonight, he suggested. A chance to unwind and share a family moment after all this. Olivia nodded eagerly, the idea of a cozy family dinner lifting her spirits. That sounds amazing, she said, her smile genuine. Walking to the car, a calm settled over Olivia. The path ahead wouldn't be smooth and she'd face hurdles as she embraced her new identity, deepened bonds with her true family, and balanced her past with her future. But for the first time since learning who she really was, she felt truly hopeful.